Now we've got a very important session, which is on women in gaming. Just a little aside, I'm very fortunate to sit on two boards. One, which is a tuber, which is run by, which has a very dynamic female chief executive. And they also sit on the board of a company called Meridian, where 60% of the managers through the entire organization are female. So very unique in this industry. And it will be interesting to have Neve and Rani talk about what steps can be taken to increase this in the general industry.
Thank you, Willem. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming to the session. We don't have long, so I'll cut straight through it. So joined by Rani from General Counsel from LiveScore Group. So just to give a bit of background on how this session came about. So I read Rani's piece for International Women's Day, actually from my former employer, EGR. Really insightful piece, prompted me to get in touch to find out more and really bring it to the stage as a topic. So, Rani, can you tell us about the Women in Sports and Gaming Employee Resource Group that you have set up at LiveScore Group?
I can, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Rani, as Neve said. Thanks, Neve, for having me. So nice contrast as well, straight after the all-male panel that we just had with the male moderator. So we've got a bit of a change in the room now. So employee resource groups. I didn't know what an employee resource group was until about a year ago. So perhaps I'm the only one, but basically it's a group of people with shared characteristics or a common interest, and they come together within your employee pool, and together they bring ideas and perhaps collaborate and basically, they share their experience for the development of the company. So the way the LiveScore Group ERG came about, Women's ERG, we've got to get a snappier name than that for sure, I basically was returning from maternity leave. I was feeling a little bit vulnerable re-entering the workforce. I'd only had quite a short maternity leave, but I still felt like I was coming back with a new identity. I was a mum and I was a professional, and I was working in an organisation that only had 22% women. And we're geographically spread out. So we're all over the world, and we're relatively low numbers. And so I wanted to, network with those people and bring them together into sort of a collective group or a collective organisation. So the Women's ERG was formed within LiveScore Group. We started with around 20 women. We're up to 45. And yeah, it's been an amazing experience so far.
Okay, amazing initiative. So can you tell us about, what kind of things that you've done to improve the gender equality both in LiveScore Group and, maybe beyond that as well for the future?
Yeah, it's been like, when I reflect back, the last 9 months have been pretty astounding, to be honest, the things that we have achieved as the WISC. Terrible acronym again. But essentially, when we got together, we had a brainstorming session initially, and it was facilitated by someone who ran Lego Serious Play. So all of these ideas fizzed out of this collaborative group. And we then went about distilling those ideas into our priorities, and we've since worked through the priority list over the last 9 months. So in terms of those priorities, if I can show you the world's worst presentation, I'm not sure. Oh, no. Oh, spoiler. Okay. So we came up with our call to action together as a group. So we wanted to essentially have culture change within the organisation. We wanted to focus on learning and development, mentoring, social and networking between women, and health and well-being. And so in terms of how we went about that program, the first thing we did was a policy review. So we looked at every single policy that LiveScore Group has that either predominantly affected women or potentially touched on women, or where there was gaps. And what we've done is we've worked with the people team to enhance and modernise a lot of those policies. So we changed and relaunched our pregnancy loss policy and our menopause policy, and then we've had a huge relaunch of our family policies. So obviously I know among the audience there's people from all different jurisdictions, and Scandinavia compared to America have very different attitudes to maternity leave, for example. But for us, we've taken a global approach in our relaunched family policies, and maternity leave is now 6 months fully paid for any woman. And after that, you've also got your statutory leave in every jurisdiction, and for the full period of your leave, you're also entitled to all your benefits and your bonus, etc. So that was one area that we worked on, policies, and then we also went about gender neutralising all of our job descriptions. We know that women don't apply for things if they don't feel that they've met all the relevant criteria. And we wanted to get really talented women into the top of our funnel because we know that, the more we want the best talent, and so then you've got to have the widest audience for those particular roles. So gender neutralised our job descriptions, made sure that people still encouraged to apply even when they didn't necessarily achieve every single tick box on the job description. And we've also hosted a whole range of events over the last 9 months. We had an amazing attendance at our International Women's Day panel. And just a number of other initiatives so far. So more to come, but quite a lot of work in 9 months.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you touched on it briefly already. LiveScore Group's a massive player in the industry. If I'm correct, still with these stats, over 800 people in 9 locations. How do you employ something like this, these kind of initiatives, keeping in mind kind of cultural sensitivities in different locations as well?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of people in the room that would be a bigger, more massive player than LiveScore Group. We are still quite agile and relatively young in the industry. We were the sports vertical of Gamesys Group, and we split off in 2019. And so the last 3 years have been a really fast-paced evolution of our business. Certainly we want to be a massive player, so appreciate that. In terms of cultural sensitivities and geographical differences, I think that's certainly something that you always have to keep in mind, and the way that you communicate must be really respectfully. But at the end of the day, LiveScore Group has a common culture, a DNA and values that we stand by, and those are encouragement of diversity and inclusivity in our business and equality. And I don't think they're just buzzwords that everyone's using. That really is who we are, what we stand for, and if that's not what you stand for, then that's, LiveScore Group's not the right employer for you. So I also think by having that stance and engaging in that way across the world, well, we've got a competitive edge in a lot of markets as well. I'm sure you can imagine that kind of maternity policy is quite unusual in some of the markets in which we operate, in which we have offices. So it's a real game changer as an employer, and it's very attractive to the market.
Okay, great. And so in terms of, when you were starting out setting up the initiative, what kind of challenges did you come up against internally, whether it be from the actual staff themselves or from kind of, higher up in the organisation or, operational? Was there any kind of particular challenges? Yeah, touch wood. Not sure if these are wood, but touch wood, we haven't had too many challenges. We'll go to the next slide, and again, you're going to see the terrible design skills. And also, tell me you're a lawyer that doesn't want to infringe your competitors' logos without telling me. But essentially, what this shows here, these are our media competitors, and we'll go to betting in a moment. LiveScore is a media app as well as our sports books, so we have about 55 million users across the globe. So these are our media competitors, and these stats were taken from Maze, UK, Glassdoor and Indeed sites, which any HR professionals will know are basically your way to measure your audience and brand metric and attract people to your organisation. And so the reason I think we haven't had that many challenges in getting these initiatives off the ground is because we can see it's working. We've moved the dial significantly. So we're 30%. We attract 30% more women to our company pages and our job postings on the media side of the business, as compared to our nearest competitors. And on the betting side of the business, we're attracting between 7 and 20% more women to our sites, to our job postings. And when you attract fantastic, diverse and unique people to the top of your funnel, then they enrich your culture of the business, and hopefully you motivate them to keep them within the organisation and continue that great culture. Yeah, definitely. Really impressive stats that you have there. And I think, just before you move on, I think as well, it's not just visits, it's the applications that we're receiving. So
the great thing, I guess, about working in an organisation like the LiveScore Group, you've got great professionals, and our internal PR team has helped us to shout about the WISC and shout about everything that we're doing internally, and I think that's then reflected in what's happening here, and it's also translating into actual applications. So around a year ago, around about a quarter of our job applications were from women, so 25%, and now we're seeing it's around 34%. So it moved that dial as well, 9% more applications across the world globally in a year.
And has it led to any other initiatives been set up within the business, off the back of the success of this so far?
Yeah, I think we have 2 other ERGs. So there's a Pride ERG and a Working Parents and Carers ERG. So they're both doing similar kinds of things, which is fantastic, and we do collaborate. I think what I would say it has done, and I hope this is true, would be that it's really fostered a culture of safety in terms of bringing forward ideas within the organisation. I think it's shown that, wow, there's this group of people and they're getting stuff done. It's amazing what a room full of women can do. Very powerful, very organised. I think it's fostered a culture of safety within the organisation, had a bit of a snowball effect in terms of novel ideas and ways to improve the conditions for all different employees, for all different backgrounds, regardless of orientation, gender, doesn't matter. It's just got this great had this great snowball effect.
And on the point of bringing forward ideas, obviously anyone, if you have any questions or comments at any time, just put your hand up and we can get a mic to you. But moving on, part of the this session title about women being underrepresented in the industry. Why do you think that is, and how do you think it's changed over years?
Well, looking at this audience back at me, you wouldn't think it's the case. So, thanks for all the support. I also felt it was fantastic. Sorry, I digress. But it was fantastic at the Women in Gaming Diversity Awards 2 weeks ago at the Savoy in London, where it was just this very motivating room of women, and it was so great to be part of that as well. And I thought, things are changing. But no, so in terms of underrepresentation within the industry, look, I can't really speak to necessarily the legacy issues of the industry. I think we definitely need to somehow drop the shackles of the kind of sexist overtones that have been associated with the industry previously. And we're only going to do that if we attract more women, we make our employment places great places for women to work. And why is that important? I mean, why is this important? Why is representation important? Well, we know that homogenous male groupthink is not good for business. It doesn't help any kind of successful business. You need diverse voices in every single room where there are decisions being made, and there are decisions being made in every single room outside of the boardroom. Whether it's acquisition, technology, compliance, infrastructure. You need to have different ways of thinking and people from different backgrounds coming together for the benefit ultimately of your organisation, your bottom line, your revenue generation. So we may have a legacy of underrepresentation in the past, but certainly I'm here to see it changed in the future. And I'm not going to accept the status quo. I'm sure many women in here aren't going to accept the status quo. So
good.
Time's up.
Yeah. And so you mentioned, people bringing new ideas and having different background experience as well. Have you seen anything from other industries outside of gaming that has been, quite inspirational that maybe, we could implement as well? Yeah, so not sure if you can tell from my accent because everyone says it's so mixed now, but I am Australian and I worked in private practice law firm in Australia, and then when I emigrated to the UK, I moved in-house to Sky, which obviously is a huge media giant, and then took the sidestep into gambling a few years after that. But I've always worked kind of under the media law umbrella. Even though legal practice and media in general is much closer to parity in terms of gender balance, I actually think that those organisations that I worked for previously could learn from the kinds of things that are happening now. And I think it's probably just the lapse of time between when I was in the, back 5-10 years ago to 15 years ago to now. I think the world's come a long way.
And so I don't necessarily think that we can learn from other industries. I just think everyone can learn from everyone. LiveScore Group doesn't want to just be a great employer in the iGaming and sports space. It wants to be a great employer, full stop. So yeah, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, and on an individual level, like what would you encourage people to do to kind of, so that women can play a larger part in the industry, and not just women, men as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've really found that the collective voice has been really powerful in this regard. I think fortune favours the brave here, and it is worth taking risks. You don't need to hire the guy that you worked with at the last 4 competitors. I think you need to be open to different talent, and really encourage and listen to your employee voices, because they have something to say for a reason.
Yeah, really good tips there. Okay, so I can see the countdown clock here. So on to the last question, and without obviously giving away any secrets, can you share any plans for LiveScore Group, with this initiative and beyond for the next, let's say, year, 5 years, whatever is in store?
Yeah, okay. So I think over the next year, I think I mentioned that we have a fertility leave policy that we're about to launch. I'm not sure if I mentioned it actually, but fertility is obviously a very personal topic. It affects a lot of women and men actually in their family decisions. And so we've created a policy where people don't have to be embarrassed. They've got something to point to when they're going to be speaking to their manager potentially about that topic. So fertility leave policy in the next year, potentially a period leave policy in the next year, lots more events, a new charity partner. So lots of things happening grassroots level within the next year. And then in the 5 years, if I use my longer lens, hopefully I've won the lotto, so maybe I won't be here. But I think in terms of LiveScore Group and the industry in the next 5 years, I'd love to see lots more female CEOs, women at every different level of the business. For LiveScore in particular, only 8% of our audience is women. So I would love to see that dial moved. I would like women employees speaking to women customers, and just a more symbiotic relationship, regardless of gender. I think that's a really untapped potential at the moment, particularly given the interest in women's sports, huge growth area, and as it should be, Lionesses, Red Roses, Women's World Cup coming up. So yeah, I'd like to see that dial moved, and yeah, more women CEOs and just more conversations.
Yeah, so keep an eye out. No, it's interesting what you say about the players as well. So when I was at EGR Global, we saw our readership for women increase year on year. So the dial is definitely moving. So we're going in the right direction. Just before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions? No? I think we're just
nothing off script. That's great. Yeah.
We'll keep to the script. Rani, thanks so much for joining me. And really looking forward to seeing what LiveScore Group have and hold for the future in this area.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Neve. Thanks for coming.